welcome to this week's edition of the Durham Bulls Podcast, where we highlight the champions and the personalities and the traditions and the histories that are Durham Bulls baseball. I'm Patrick Kinas, the TV and radio broadcaster for the Durham Bulls, and thanks to all of you for downloading and subscribing to the Durham Bulls Podcast over this first month. And if you're new here, we welcome you, and you can find the audio version of the Durham Bulls Podcast on Spotify and Apple and all of those podcast platforms. And on the video side, you can watch us at Durham Bulls TV on our YouTube channel. And the opening conga-based theme music you just heard, courtesy of a former Bulls manager, Charlie Montoya, a good friend of mine, with Montoya playing the congas as part of his band, Montoya Rocks. And so now we will introduce today's guest, who jumps to AAA to manage the Durham Bulls, just like Charlie did. He's coming to AAA for the first time, a National League All-Star, a college national champion, and a guy whose first job at high school, I found out, was delivering produce to families in Southern California. It's Morgan Ensberg. Hello, my man. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Okay. Hey, you told me, go through Wikipedia, dig up whatever you can.
Yeah, I was like,
that was way beneath the surface.
I'll tell you, I've never had anybody know that I delivered produce. Like, I've never had anybody ask me. I don't know how you found that out, but
so I need to know that.
Right after I got, so it was right after I got drafted, and I needed an off-season job. So it was actually college, and I drove. It was still a Class C license, but it's the big kind of U-Haul size, but refrigerator trucks. And I'm telling you, these things are packed to the gills. You got a hand truck packed to the gills, and I would wake up at 4 a.m. be just east of downtown LA at 4:25, and I would 4:30, and by 5 a.m. I'd be off the dock. And during that time, I would work 6 days a week. And by the time I got to about these are 12-hour, 13-hour days. By the time I got to about Thursday morning, I was time and a half. And then by the time I got to Friday morning, I was double time. And so and then one interesting story, the biggest nightmare of my life was a big night for food is New Year's Eve. So I had a New Year's Eve deal. I was to the second to last stop. Okay. And I hit a bump, and I was like, that didn't sound good. I open up the truck. I just had 2 more stops left. Everything had fallen. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I cleaned it up quickly because they're going to wash it, but I cleaned it up quickly, got it out. But it was a scary moment when I opened up the back of that deal.
I mean, it brings up so many offshoots too. And I haven't even officially asked you your first question yet, but are the damaged product in the back of your truck, is that coming out of your double pay in your time and a half? If you damage it on your drive, is it coming out of your paycheck?
Yeah, look, so here's the battle in that whole deal is luckily it's hard to explain, but like the things made it. But yeah, if you have bruised things, like they don't accept it, and you take it off the list. Yeah. So it was my heart just dropped. So because I had to get off the dock that morning at 4 a.m. I had to go an extra hour early, and it was like 6 o'clock at night. I mean, it was scary.
I mean, what are you talking? You're talking oranges, grapefruits, avocados. What are you delivering?
Yeah, tomatoes. I mean, eggs. Thank goodness the egg box didn't. I mean, golly. I mean, if an egg box had dropped, I mean, these things are. I mean, each one. I don't know. I don't remember how many. Maybe 72 eggs in that thing. I mean, it's like a box. So luckily that I didn't have that. But like lettuce fell, but that stayed in the box. It was a mess, but it was doable.
How did you get the job, and why did your parents insist that Morgan needs a job, or was this to help? I know you're a walk-on at USC. Was this to help pay tuition for college?
Yeah, I didn't. So I got I was a senior sign. I got $25,000 signing bonus paid over a 2-year span. So I got 12.5 and 12.5, and I immediately saved it. So once I had it, it was gone, and I needed to get a job. So I got a connection there, and I got a job doing that. I actually loved it. I loved it. I love working. I think work is good, and it makes you feel good, and I love doing that job. And I got a chance to see just a bunch of things that I wouldn't normally be exposed
Yeah.
to. So I really enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, that's a good transition into now after your major league career. We'll talk about that a little bit later as we kind of introduce you to all the Durham Bulls great fans that you maybe played a game or two in front of in '08, I'm guessing, for Buffalo down here. But that seems to for all that I've read about you and learned about you, you love the teaching aspect of baseball, right? I mean, after you retired from the big leagues, you went out to a school in California to be not even a head coach, but like an assistant infield coach because
Yeah.
you really just wanted to instruct, mentor, and teach these kids, right?
Yeah. So I am very thankful for my career. I'm shocked by it. When I was 9, I had a rough game, and this is Hermosa Beach, California. So that's kind of by the airport. It's 20 miles southwest of downtown LA, and it's like Manhattan, Hermosa, Redondo. So it's called the South Bay. And our leagues weren't very good in sports. We didn't have a lot of kids at the time, so we had a lot of fun. And I remember at age 9, I was just upset that I had a rough game, and my dad, we were driving back, and he says, son, you don't have to be, so upset. You're going to be a professional athlete. Like, professional athletes don't come from Hermosa. He said, son, you're going to go to college. You're going to find somebody, have a family. You're going to get a job and just have fun. And I thought about it. He wasn't being mean or mad. He was just giving perspective of everything. And I truly believe that was the reason why I ended up making it as a professional, because from that point on, I kind of took the pressure off myself a little bit, and I had fun. So yeah, this whole thing was definitely an accident, but I always knew that I was a teacher. My mom's a teacher, a retired teacher. And even though I played in the big leagues, I knew that kind of my strength in life was teaching the game. I've had great managers and coaches from high school through pro ball that you don't get to choose, because I was a walk-on. So you don't get to choose. You get the manager or the coach that you get.
So let's talk about your time, because with all the time and history and the accolades you had in big league baseball, many don't return to the game, right? They move on. They work for charities. They work for businesses. They want to be a dad. They do many other things. They've done the grind. They've been on the buses. They've been on the flights, and they've kind of done their sentence, and it's time to move on and do something else.
Right.
So the fact that you only took a couple of years off after you retired to get back into coaching at some level, and now have grinded it out through the minor leagues for almost 10 years now at various levels with the Astros in Tampa Bay, you strike me as almost a unicorn, because there just aren't many guys who want to do the grind again. But to me, it just tells me that you love the game so much, you love being around the game so much, and you love, I guess, wanting to have an impact on these players, not only big league lives, but just lives writ large. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So, on that thing, each year I've managed, I've asked the coaching staff if money was no object, like if money, and I'm not talking about like a little bit of money. I'm talking literally where money was absolutely no object. What would you do? Just because I want to hear sort of what their passion is. And ultimately they would end up asking me, well, what would you do? And I said at the time, well, I'd be coaching short season. I'd be managing high A. I'd be managing double A. And now my response would be, I'm managing triple A. So I don't feel like this is a job. I take baseball extremely seriously, and it's very important to me, but it doesn't feel like a job to me.
Do you think if I asked some of the players who have come through Montgomery or Bowie's Creek or any of the other locations where you managed here over the last few years, if I asked them what's their favorite part about playing for Morgan Ensberg, what do you think their answer would be? Would it be one common denominator, or would it be an assortment of answers?
It might be an assortment of answers, but I think more than anything, I think that they would end up saying that he understands what we're feeling. I was them. And I think that that's one of the big connections that I make with a player. And I'm not one of these former players that thinks that this is easy. Well, all you got to do is just hit the ball over the fence, or just, well, if he's going to throw you a slider, just wait back a second and then, hit it, or just throw a ball over the plate. It's that easy. It's not like that. I think that they would say that I'm constantly encouraging, because I am. I constantly try to catch them doing good, because if I can catch them doing good, the player can associate a technique with a positive. And once they align that positive with a specific technique, they will chase it. Because a lot of times what is happening is players can't feel what you're trying to describe. So anyway, I mean, when I catch them doing good, that kind of does it. But I think the positiveness, and I think just the understanding that I know what they're going through and how they're feeling.
I mean, you're speaking like a father, right? I mean, I'm the dad of a 2-year-old, and I'm just
Correct.
beginning to go through those phases of he really is watching everything that I do. He's learning from the example that I'm setting, and I sense that hearing that answer from you. But I also reflect back to your dad when you're 9 years old, telling you what he did that acted as kind of the agent or the motivating factor behind Morgan and his baseball career, and really the way that you kind of conduct yourself just as a human being.
Well, on that, it's interesting because I thought about that. I don't consider myself as much of a father, but I coach like an uncle. Okay. I coach like an uncle, because the uncle is in a unique situation where they're able to simultaneously be positive and then at the same time being like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, what are you going on? So it's one of those deals, like I put on the back of my card a lot of times where I say, coach like an uncle, and I write it down so that I remember. So I try to coach like an uncle.
So this is really one of the first in-depth conversations I'm having with you in my life. So is it fair to say that this is a Morganism? Are these unusually crafted phrases things that I should get used to from Morgan, or is that coach like an uncle? Is that a phrase you learned from somebody? I'm trying to get a sense of who I'm talking to here.
I don't know where I got that. I just knew that my Uncle Steve and my Uncle Marcus are awesome people, and they're just, uncles are awesome. Uncles, they don't have the same responsibilities as the dad, right? Like, I mean, they can be the fun one. My Uncle Steve, who was my dad's brother, pressured my dad to get the Air Jordans that were $100 at the time in 1987 for me, like lobbying for that. And then, other times it's like, hey, don't talk like that, so it's an interesting balance, but that's something that resonated with me. And so I said, I'm just going to coach like I'm an uncle.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great phrase. We'll talk a lot about baseball over the next couple of minutes and over the next 6 months with you here in Durham. But before we began the podcast today, you had mentioned that baseball wasn't even your favorite sport as a kid. Explain what was and why.
So baseball was the last of the favorite sports, right? So at first it was soccer. Soccer was just my love. I got playing at age 4. My brother Lars would end up playing soccer at UCLA while I was at USC. And then it gradually went into basketball. And I loved basketball. And a large reason probably why I wasn't heavily recruited was because I was a basketball player in our area. I grew up playing against Paul Pierce, knockdown dragouts with that guy, playing against Inglewood all the time, and, doing the travel ball, because that was more with the travel ball. I was on club soccer and club basketball, and they didn't really have much club baseball. I did, American Legion, right? Like during the summers and so forth. But I was a guard, and in my area, I was much more known as a basketball player, and my family and friends thought I was a better basketball player. They're like, you're a better basketball player than baseball. And I said, I mean, maybe right now, but I'm not going to be. I knew baseball was my actual love and passion. Yeah.
But you also loved skiing, right? That was major interest of yours.
Listen, we started skiing at age 3, and my love of all loves, and really nobody knows this until now, but if I could do anything in the world, I would ski every single day. I grew up, we went skiing, and I just love it. I used to do the moguls and be much more athletic, and now I just sort of coast. It's like longboard surfing. I just kind of coast down, but I love skiing more than anything in this world.
Well, there aren't many hills out here in Durham, right? The mountains are a few hours
Correct.
away. Up in Virginia, you might find it, but you're going to be here in July.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. Well, it's not happening.
So is that a sport that you will watch? You'll throw on Peacock if there's a big World Cup event, or Lindsey Vonn, going downhill, or
I like watching it. I really like watching the moguls, even though I can't do that. I'm fascinated that they can go straight down those hills and do tricks and stuff. But I like downhill. I like downhill. I think that's good. And I use kind of some skiing references occasionally.
And you had mentioned there's a lot of Norwegian in your family tree, right? I mean, so it's not surprising that skiing and kind of the alpine sports are in your bloodstream somewhere.
Yeah, so both sides of my family are Norwegian. My parents, my dad, my grandpa was a Lutheran minister, and my mom's side was also Norwegian. They met at Cal Lutheran out here out in California, and so both sides were Norwegian, and that's just something that we grew up doing.
So let's jump into baseball here while we have a few minutes with you, Morgan. So you've been in Montgomery over the last couple of years. All you've done there is basically win and go to the playoffs. You won a championship with Montgomery a few years ago. Prior to last year, Michael Johns came in as the Durham Bulls manager. I thought that you might land that job since we had seen Brady Williams come through and Jared Sandberg came through from Port Charlotte and jumped here to Durham. Were you wanting to be in the mix for that position going into last year, or what happened? We're thrilled to have you now. We knew you'd be here eventually, and 2024 is your year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, so it's interesting. Like, yeah, of course I would have loved to do it. I think that the way I view things is when I was younger and definitely going up, and even as a younger coach or manager, the goal was like, get to the big leagues tomorrow, like get to the big leagues. And as I've gotten more gray, in my beard and stuff, you get some wisdom. And those things really shifted. One, I know that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. No matter what the situation, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. There's a very clear reason why I am somewhere. It's for a player, it's for a person. It's so clear to me that that's the case. But the other thing is simply that I believe in a classic education, meaning I believe that I'm best prepared if I go through preschool through college, right? Like a classic up the chain. And I think that's just part of it. I think that with each year you learn something different, and there's a very specific reason why you're there. And so, yeah, I mean, I wanted it, but at the same time, even this year, if I hadn't gotten the AAA job, I would be happy in Montgomery. I'd be happy in Bowling Green. I'd be happy in the Dominican. I'd be happy anywhere managing or coaching baseball.
I would imagine that perspective plays really strongly with the players, especially at AA. Whether it's a Shane Baz trying to get to Durham and then get his way to the big leagues, or a Greg Jones, or some of the other prospects, because as long as you and I have been in the game, it wasn't always a half season at AA, then you get moved to AAA. Sometimes you get 300 in A-ball and you go back and repeat the next year for a couple of months. That has changed. So the rapidity with which these players climb the ladder is a lot more aggressively pitched now than what it was 15 years ago. So I would imagine these players seeing you with all of your histories, all of your accomplishments, content with you are where your feet are, and not pining about being at AAA or being passed over if that were the case. I would imagine that would help kind of settle them and focus on what their job is, which is to learn and get better at their craft, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that, after going through kind of each of the levels I did short season when I first started managing in 2017, and then high A, and then I came here for AA. So I've been doing that, and now I'm going to start AAA. And I'm telling you, AA is definitely where I feel like I was needed. I think that there's so much about that specific level, which we won't get into too much, but the gist of it is that you have more and more people who have really good stuff and really great ability, and now they're able to use it more. And it's like both sides, meaning the pitching and the hitting side and the defense, it's like jumping into the deep end of the pool, or even like cold. Like all of a sudden you're facing somebody who has just as quality of stuff as you have as a hitter. And it's a very difficult level. I always say that, you can get to AA on your talent, and then once you get to AA, Now it really switches over to your mind, and it becomes 100% mental, because if you can get to double A, you can play in the big leagues.
Yeah, I really thought, and I was with the Carolina Mudcats when they were double A with the Rockies and the Marlins and with the Reds for a couple of years. And it really felt like that was the purest level of professional baseball. And I felt like it was the biggest jump from A ball to double A, getting to that level. The lineups were that much deeper. The bullpens were that much stronger compared to, the one or two guys you'd see in A ball. But I felt like if you could compete there, and the mental issue was, for, at least in my mind, from my perspective, the biggest thing to harness. Because at that stage, almost everybody who gets a double A has the talent to get to the big leagues. Whether they get there and whether they can stay is a different story.
The player goal here is to continue to work on your particular game, but you need to be able to play at 80% at all times. Like, your work is 80% of your ability. And so we saw that, but I agree. I think there's a separation at double A. And again, triple A is a hurdle. I mean, the way it's being used across is much, it is the deck circle more playing, or like got a lot or going things. So it's definitely a different level, presents type of challenges, but I do essentially basically 90% mentally.
So when you found out that you were getting the Durham job, what were some of the first things that went through your mind? Not talking about roster construction, but just talking about now because I mean, you went straight from double A to the big leagues initially with Houston, but getting to triple A, you're dealing with older players, veterans who have, 1, 2, 4 years, sometimes in Erasmo Ramirez's case, 6 years of big league service time, who might be on your team over the course of the year. Does that alter your approach as a manager? Does it give you an opportunity to learn more about how to become a better manager, managing those type of players at this level with the blend of young and veteran players?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at each level you're dealing with different players in different parts of their lives and different ages. So that will be different. But when I got the job, I was happy, but I said to myself, I wonder who I'm going to be there for. Like here, I've gone through and realized that I'm there for a very specific reason, and I'm there for a very specific person. And you look back, at your career, and I'm not going to, but I know why I'm at each place. Like each place, there was a very specific instance where Dan now was there. I think in terms of how I manage, the way I manage is that I try to kind of create an environment that I wanted to play in, right? And so that's what I try to do. I am not a micromanager. I am not a micromanager at all. I'm very much about making sure that the coaches feel safe to be able to coach, because I don't know what those coaches know. I know certain things about whatever I know, but I don't know the ins and outs of that. And I certainly am not around the players as much as they are in terms of that tutoring. So, yeah, I mean, besides that, I'm just a real positive, manager. So that portion won't be that different.
So you've been in spring training with the Rays for a couple of weeks now, and the previous two managers of the Durham Bulls are down there, both in the coaching staff for Kevin Cash. And this is a kind of an odd question to ask, but have you picked the minds of Brady Williams and Michael Johns? And I say that with all due respect, because of the three, you're the only one who's played in the big leagues, and you did it for a long time, and you played around some Hall of Famers. But Brady's journey has been different. He learned so much from his dad and from his brother. And Michael Johns has been more in player development and then jumping back into managing after a few years away. What are those conversations like with those three, if they occur?
Yeah, no, they absolutely occur, because again, I'm a big believer in, like, you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes I don't even know what questions to ask. So it's just trying to start a conversation. But they've helped me a lot with understanding what the different things that are going to pop up. And I keep on trying to think of questions for them. I am a great, and I mean great, copier. Like, I am excellent at finding what other people are really good at and just copying them. If they're doing something that works, if they're scheduling, if they have advice and they've already gone through the pain of that, I don't feel like repeating that. I'm simply like, well, I'm copying. Because I don't need, I'm not one of those coaches or manager that needs to put my mark on, the player, because that's messed up. The player is the player. But yes, I've picked all of their brains, cash included.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your time in Durham, because as the manager, it has not happened. But back in 2008, if my numbers and rosters are correct, you played for Buffalo, which was the Cleveland AAA team in the International League, and you were there almost all year. And you would have had some games either against Durham up at up in Buffalo or down here in Durham. Did you play games here? And what do you remember about Durham then?
I do. I only remember the locker room. I remember being here, but I don't remember, the games. But I do remember being there, and I remember it being really nice, but that's about it. I mean, it was, I'm embarrassed to say, but it was so long ago, but I did go to, what's kind of cool, I think, is that when I was 16, I went to Duke baseball camp. So that was the first time I flew out by myself to Raleigh, Durham, and then went to Duke baseball camp. So that was the first time I was exposed to this area. And I loved basketball growing up, right? So it was a lot of Duke and North Carolina, those games. And this is obviously kind of a hotbed for that area. So it's pretty nostalgic that I get a chance to do this. And then I know it's cliche, but truly, I loved the movie Bull Durham. Like, I loved it. I think it was so accurate. Like, it's shockingly accurate. Even today, it was pretty amazing that that film was, had everything that was in it, because it's very true.
Well, we've had Ron Shelton, who was the writer and director of it, who played minor league baseball. We've had him on the air several times. Was there one thing as you're watching the movie that really resonated with you, saying, "Oh my God, yes, that's exactly what it was like"?
I mean, obviously the mound visit is right on. I mean, the mound visit is, yes, baseball is happening, but a lot of times there's some other things that are going on out there. I think just the dialogue. I mean, I think that, Nuke talking about trying to announce his presence with authority and these different things like that. And I think that the dialogue was so perfect. About it, but also the travel, right? Like the travel back when I was playing was much more similar to that. So there were a lot of things, I think, that resonated.
See, I could imagine maybe a conversation like the candlestick conversation with Morgan Ensberg and maybe Roy Oswald, because you came up generally with him through the Astros organization. I cannot envision a candlestick conversation with Andy Pettitte or Roger Clemens or Greg Maddux or David Wells, other teammates that you've had across your career. Is that accurate?
I mean, Greg Maddux for sure. Definitely. I mean, David Wells, maybe. Rocket for sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, Roy actually, like, Roy, you could too. I mean, I'll tell you what. I mean, those guys that are elite and the best of the best, they're pretty focused and they're in there, but they're pretty funny people, that group. Greg Maddux for sure. Greg Maddux was probably thinking about that when he was throwing.
So let's go back to something you mentioned earlier about being the 9-year-old Morgan. You had that conversation with your dad. You hit a home run in the World Series for the Astros against the Chicago White Sox. In what game? Game 2. You played in the World Series. You hit a home run. You're playing with all kinds of Hall of Famers. You finished 4th in the MVP race in 1 year behind Pujols and Andruw Jones and Derek Lee, and he finished ahead of Miguel Cabrera, who I rode buses with when he was on his way up in the minor leagues. I know you probably don't think about this perspective very often, but do you sometimes like wake up and go, holy crap, I really can't believe all that happened, and all the places I've gone, the teammates I've had, and the experiences that I've had?
I do. I do wake up, and it's very surreal. It's difficult. It's a very strange situation to be in. I realized that I did those things, but it seems like it was another world. And I'm very thankful for those experiences, obviously. And it was a really cool life during that time that you got a chance to do that, and you got a chance to perform in front of the people. But it is definitely surreal. And I think it's the same thing as anybody else in a strange sense. Like, everybody, hopefully has had a good game in their life, and they remember that in 6th grade, they had a great basketball game and so forth. And you remember that, I scored 40 points, but you don't, you're like, it's difficult to actually feel that. The part that's strange about it is, I guess because of the experience, I feel completely comfortable around big leaguers. I feel comfortable on Hall of Famers. And I guess I'm on the inside knowing that they're honestly regular. They're really regular people.
Yeah. And
they're really shockingly normal.
That's the beauty of our sport, is when you peel away all the layers, when you take away the nameplates off the back of uniforms, and when you're just having a beer after a game or playing cards in the hotel lobby or riding a bus or at an airport terminal, they're just dudes. They're just human beings, just like we all are. And that is what I enjoy most about the journey that I'm on, to have an opportunity to interact and just call people friends. And I don't see Miguel Cabrera as a Hall of Famer. I see him as Miggy. I see him as that 20-year-old kid who rode the bus. And I can imagine the same would be the case for you.
It is. I mean, and it's really cool when you do meet those guys and you get to be teammates with them and realize that they're really normal guys. Like Roger Clemens, really normal. I realize that he's incredible. He's really, Jeff Bagwell, really regular dude, has incredible ability. Lance Berkman, same deal. And then all those guys, with the Yankees, like Jorge Posada's awesome. Jeter's awesome. Like really, really good guys and really normal people. They just have a very unique skill.
Do you have your favorite story of 1, 2, or 3 of those teammates? I don't mean to have you single guys out, but when you think of a Derek Jeter, we had Bill Evers talking about Derek Jeter a couple of weeks ago. He was Jeter's manager in Greensboro on the way up. What stories come to mind when you think about the Maddoxes and the Mariano Riveras and the Roger Clemens and the other colleagues of yours?
I mean, I think that it's not necessarily that I would tell you one specific story, but the one common thread between all of those guys very specifically is that the amount of work they do to dedicate to be that good is shocking. Is shocking. They are not falling out of bed and hitting and pitching. They're not falling out of bed and just doing that. They have incredible skill, but if you were to see the workload that they do, I was shocked when I saw it. Like if you watch Roger Clemens and Andy Pettitte work out, you'd be blown away that they have any energy to go out on the field and pitch. I mean, they are absolute workhorses. Watching Derek Jeter take ground balls religiously every day, doing his hitting routine, playing long toss 3 times a day, by the way, 3 times a day before the game and twice, early on from the right field line to the left field foul pole. We're talking 300 feet from a shortstop. Watching him and A-Rod do that is mind-blowing. Watching Derek Jeter and Alex being in the front of the line on 100% of the drills and absolutely going 100% is a different perspective. And all of those guys were actually just really nice, good dudes.
As I'm sitting here watching you, since we're doing this on Zoom, and as I listen to how you tell these stories, it really does strike me that it feels like this almost feels like an out-of-body experience from your perspective. Like, I know what happened to me. I know Morgan Ensberg's, connected to all these guys and teammates and won all these games and did all these things with them. But my impression is that you still feel like it's almost a surprise that it happened, or it was in an entirely different life with somebody who has the same name as you do. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think both of those are very accurate. And again, I do know that I played. I do know that I did it. But you're right, it is very surreal. About 15 years ago, somebody had sent me a picture on Twitter, and every person that's played for the Yankees signs a ball and it goes up on a wall. Okay, so every single player. And as luck would have it, my ball was put right below Mickey Mantle. So it says Mickey Mantle, and then it says Morgan Ensberg on this deal. And I'm sitting there like, how is that even possible? And it's even more so because my dad's from Long Island and he was a Yankees guy. And anyway, the point of it is there was a baseball in Yankee Stadium, up on the wall, and it says Mickey Mantle, Morgan Ensberg. So that's very surreal, right? When you think about Mickey Mantle, who hit the furthest ball ever and had the fastest time down the line ever, I mean, that's crazy talk, that I would even be close to in the same league as people like that. Meaning play, not ability. I meant just that I would have a uniform and that person would have a uniform. It is surreal, but I'm very thankful that I got a chance to do it.
Morgan, as you tell me that story, I can't help but think of my broadcast partner who will share a lot of the same stories that you just mentioned. Scott Pose is the color commentator.
Oh, Scott.
He's our broadcast partner up here for the Bulls. He lives in Raleigh. He's been a dear friend for about 10 years. And when I hear you talk about your time with the Yankees and how almost sillily fortunate you were to play for them, I mean, that's Scott talking about his career on. I don't know why I'm on the big league team with Mr. Torrey, but I'm on the big league team, and I really, frankly, can't explain why they want to be up here, but I'm here. So I hear a lot of that same humility and humbleness from both of you. So you will have a great time sharing a lot of experiences and conversations with Scott. So I'm excited for you to
that'll be great.
Either meet for the first time or reacquaint each other. Have you met him before?
Yeah, I mean, we played together, I think, in AAA.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I think so. If I've got this, I'm trying to look this up. Yeah, I play with Scott.
There you go.
I just looked up his face. I know Scott. Yeah, we played together in AAA. So that's great. I didn't know that he was with you.
So you were with him in Columbus, or where?
I was with him in Houston. He was over in Houston.
Okay.
Yeah, we played together when I was coming up.
Yeah, you'll see him so much you'll get tired of him.
Oh, it'll be great.
No, he's a blast. So let me kind of wind things down here because we want to share your story with all the Bulls fans. And this is always one of my favorite questions to ask because I just don't know where it will take us. So we had Ryan Stanek on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about his call up from the Bulls. Jared Sandberg told him he's going up. Anyway, his flight got canceled. He had to actually rent a car and drive from Connecticut to Fenway Park to make his debut a couple of years ago. and then Pig got a hold in the 8th inning that same day. So I want to hear your story about when you were first called up, because you were playing at Double A in Round Rock under a major league manager. Jackie Moore was your manager at Double A, and you're going up as a 25-year-old in mid-September in 2000. What can you share about that story and that experience as you played in St. Louis?
So it was very interesting because we had gone to Double A, and that's, the Ryans, Nolan Ryan and Reed and Reese and Wendy, do this Round Rock Express deal. And I'm telling you, it's the biggest ticket in town. I mean, it is an unbelievable venue, unbelievable place to play. The place is packed, completely. And we win the championship. I mean, it's just the storybook, like first year in, go to Double A, and we win the championship. And they called myself and Keith Ginter, who was actually the MVP of the league. He had an incredible year. But he and I had really good years, and they called us. So we're cheering, we're excited because we won it at home, and we're mobbing each other and stuff. And I was like down the right field line saying thank you to the fans. And they said, well, Mo, come here. And so went to home plate, and I'm getting the chills right now. I mean, good night. I mean, I'm getting the chills right now. And over the intercom, they said, Morgan Ensberg and Keith Ginter just got called up to the big leagues. And we were with Jackie Moore. And there's a picture of us, both of us crying, like being held by Jackie Moore. And he's smiling. And both of us, like he's our, dad, so proud of us. And it was unique because we didn't need to be on the roster. And Houston hadn't sent up guys from Double A. Like, that's not, how it worked. And so I got a chance to go up there and do that and get a couple hits. And I remember Mike Maddox was our pitching coach. And I love Mike. And he said, okay, Morgan, when you get there early, just get ready and just get out of the way. He's like, be quiet, be seen, have fun, but get out of the way. Like, just be in the corner. He's like, you're going to be in the corner somewhere. It'll be no problem. I said, okay, thanks, Mike. And he said, look, have fun. I said, okay, great. So Keith and I drive the next day to Minute Maid, and we get in the locker room, and the locker room is an oval, so it's pretty long. So I walk into the main entrance of the locker room, and I look immediately far because I'm like, I'm going to be in the corner. It's probably going to be dark. Maybe it's not even a locker. And I look and I'm like, okay, it's not there. And I keep on penning down. So now we're starting to get more in the middle of the locker room that's facing the TV. It's like the prime location. And I look up and it says Bagwell, Ensberg, Biggio. They had put me in between Bagwell and Biggio, and I'm trying to get in and get out and everything. And they put me in like the epicenter of where I did not want to be. But that was a cool story. I took a picture. I thought it was hilarious.
Holy smokes! What did you talk to the clubhouse manager on how you got that locker?
I didn't
did you
say
keep
a word.
it then for years?
No, when I made the team, then I was moved to another area. But they put I didn't go to I didn't say a word. I changed really quickly and like somewhere else. Like I need to be that way. Yeah. It was a cool experience.
Were they there, or were they on the field or in the cages somewhere when you showed up and found your locker?
Well, I had showed up and nobody was in there because I got there early. But then once I put my stuff, my stuff was already in there. I put it, and I just got out of there.
What a great story. Well, you heeded Mike Maddox's advice very well. Get in, get out, and get out of the way.
I was like, got it. I was like, you got it, coach. I'll be on the bench. I'll go hang out in the closet. I don't know. I'll go into the batting cage.
Well, Morgan, I can't. What a great story! Thanks so much for your time today. I'm really, really looking forward to having you come here to Durham and spend the summer getting to know you and your family, and kind of watching you do your thing here at the AAA level. It's going to be a great pleasure for all of us here in Durham to have you here. So thanks for jumping on and introducing yourself to all of our fans. And anything else you'd like to say before we release you for today?
No, we're just going to buck them. We're Bulls. We're going to buck them.
Here. All right. Morgan, thanks for your time. And one thing I didn't tell you, managers since Charlie Montoya's days have done daily interviews with me. So as long as you're fine with it, I haven't asked you about that yet, but this seems to be the best spot to do it, to kind of tie you down and lock you into an answer. So
it's no problem. Yeah, I know that's all part of it, and that's easy.
All right. Hey, good luck through the rest of spring training. We'll see you down here in a couple of weeks.
All right, we'll see you. Thanks for having me.
Morgan Ensberg on the Durham Bulls podcast. Thanks to Morgan, and thanks to all of you for listening and watching. Again, you can find us on all the different podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, and the other major ones, and also check out Durham Bulls TV on our YouTube channel. So that's going to wrap things up for this week's episode of the Durham Bulls podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.